course, we're going to switch gears. We're going to talk about this team, the Los Angeles Dodgers, the team that you cover. And heading into this year, you're not seeing the same amount of hype. You're seeing the predictions by experts. They don't have the Dodgers winning the World Series. Some don't have them winning the division. Now, first, I'm going to start with this lineup because, of course, we know you have MVPs in Freddie Freeman and Mookie Betts. You have an emerging star in Will Smith, who, in my opinion, is going to make his first All-Star team this season. Then after that, JD Martinez, he replaces Justin Turner. Chris Taylor, Max Muncy, you need them to have bounce-back years. The Turners, Trey and Justin, have been replaced by the Miggies, Vargas, and Rojas. Just what's your overall outlook of this lineup, and do you think they have the potential to be just as good as the lineup that won 111 games last year?
The lineup is different, and to say 111 is probably not going to happen. Let's truly honest, okay? This lineup last season was a juggernaut. I mean, they could beat you up 1 through 9 and innings 1 through 9 like something I had not seen before in a consistent basis. Now, they're going to score a lot of runs because now this offense, if you think about the names that are missing, Trey Turner is going to be missed mightily. Not only is he an impactful guy leading off or batting second or third, whatever it was, but his base running, man. I mean, this guy turned innings around and allowed the guys behind him to become better productive hitters because of what he did on the bases. You think about, obviously, Justin Turner, who was not and has not been given enough credit on what he did that second half of the season.
Yeah.
This was one of the best hitters in the National League and all of baseball by what he did, the on base, the slugging, and the average. And he's a team leader. He had that team at bat. Now, going to this lineup, you mentioned the predictions. Yeah, I mean, you know what? Considering what the Padres have done, again, on paper, perhaps the experts are picking the Padres, and that's fine. But I know one thing. This is a very good team that's going to find a way offensively to get the job done. I think, and I anticipate more contact, which was an issue in October against the Padres. There's times when the situation calls for just putting the ball in play that will happen more often, I think, with this team than last year. And I'm talking again about a team that averaged more runs than anybody in baseball. But I think there's ways in which those games that were not won in one-run games, the Dodgers are pretty average one-run games, right?
Good point, yeah.
Extra innings, below average. So those games are won or lost when? Well, when the grittiness has to come out, and you have to have that team at bat, right? Now, when the lineup played 1 through 9, it was marvelous because it's like if somebody misses, there's somebody waiting. But I think Chris Taylor is going to be a huge part of this because I think overall teams will be aiming for him in his part of the lineup to say, if we can get past these 5-6 guys, let's get to Chris Taylor. So in other words, he can cut down on his swing, make more contact, the power will be there. And then going to the Vargas, who we know the potential is there, and we know this kid from what he did last year in his pedigree in the minor leagues is more than capable. And he's not fazed by anything. I mean, he's out there playing ball and relaxed and has made a nice adjustments to second base. And having Rojas next to him, unfortunately for Gavin Lux, we're going to miss him dearly. But Rojas has been just a great mentor to him, not just in the parts of this is what you do, this is what you anticipate, but even last night, I'm kind of dating this, but there's a pop-up hit to short center field where Rojas goes out, Vargas goes out, and you can see, Rojas going, hey, no, you cannot run in second base. You got to stay there. So things like that are going to make Vargas much better. Hopefully Vargas will play just enough good defense. Rojas has been one of the premier shortstop fielders in the last couple of years of the Marlins. But the pressure needs to be off Vargas in one of the two things. I always say that if you're going to be a premier offensive player, go out there and make the routine play. But I don't want just this pressure of becoming a superstar feeling second baseman to be in his mind so much and take away from his offense. What got him here right now is the fact that the guy can hit. And if he hits and makes a routine play, they're going to be just fine. But this team with Peralta, by the way, obviously we want to see more out of Trace Thompson, especially against left-handed pitching, which is why he actually is part of the team. But Mookie Betts, Freddie Freeman, Will Smith, you mentioned, I mean, he should have been an all-star last year, and I agree with you on where he's going. But this team is pretty solid. And I told this to Dave Bassett. I said, well, take these names, take the Dodgers out, and put any other Major League team name on it, and tell me those fans are not going to be excited.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
The Pirates would love to have the Dodgers lineup, right? They'd be selling out every single game. But yeah, I want to touch on a couple things you just talked about. After Gavin Lux did unfortunately go down and we lost him for the season, first thing that popped into my mind was the silver lining here is that you will have Miguel Rojas having a bigger role with Miguel Vargas. And he already worked with him a lot this offseason with his foot positioning, his glove work. And like you said, he's here for his hitting. Miguel Vargas has, in my opinion, otherworldly, beyond his years, just instincts and bat-to-ball ability. And he's going to be a big key. But I also want to talk to you about Chris Taylor, because I think with this team, I think one of the big questions is, will you get those bounce back years from Max Muncy and Chris Taylor? I'm confident that Max Muncy is a guy that he is going to be able to hit home runs. I have him hitting 35 plus home runs this season, getting back to really getting close to that all-star form. That's going to go a long way in helping this offense. But with Chris Taylor, a guy that was banged up last season, a guy that played through injuries that most players wouldn't play through. He was on the field, struggled with the swing and miss, struggled with the strikeouts. What gives you confidence that he's going to hit for more contact this season and really get back to being that player that he was before last season?
Well, number one thing is that this guy has a large contract, and he's actually knows that there's some things that need to be better about his game. And the effort's always going to be there. And you talk about, he's one of the toughest guys, in that lineup, in that clubhouse. He plays through injuries. He does not necessarily have to disclose everything that's going on. And, he just knows that he has a responsibility. My number one thing that drives me to believe he's going to change and get better is the fact that he's put in the work. Not just like, I have the big contract, this is who I am. No. He's putting in the work. He knows exactly what needs to happen. And I'm glad we see some flashes of that here in the last few games of preseason. And it's not that hard, but sometimes it's hard, okay? When you have a lot of strength, you're a strong hitter, and you see the ball flying out, that's what you enjoy the most. Like, hey, I'm going to drive the baseball, and this is who I am, right? And then your mentality says, well, in order to do that, this is how you have to swing, and there's your swing path, right? The league says, we know your swing path, and we're going to go out there and just counteract everything that you're doing on the home plate. And exactly that's why he struggled. Now, beyond the injuries, yeah, that's part of it too, but he understands that the swing path needs to change. And a lot of times when you have that kind of strength, and he's a 15 to 22 homer guy, maybe even more, who knows, but contact is a good thing. And you start thinking less and start thinking middle the other way, good things start happening, because then he starts covering the outer half better. And you think about nitty-gritty, talk to a pitcher, talk to a hitter. When it comes down to runners in scoring position, the best hitting teams are those that do what? Spoil the pitch middle out. They foul it off or they put it in play the other way, right? You talk to a pitcher, what do you want to get a guy, a big power guy? Let's go back to the days of Alex Rodriguez or Manny Ramirez, right? What's the weakness? They're like, I don't want to miss inside, because if I miss inside, it's going to hurt. So what do? You go middle of the way, and you want him to chase. So for Chris Taylor, he knows that is where pitchers want to go. Elevate a fastball once in a while, but get him to chase. And I think if he is more patient and understands that the other side of the field has not disappeared, meaning right center field to the right field line, he's going to be much better. And I'm glad that he talked openly about the swing path, because the loopy swing, the way pitching is today, man, hitting is hard today, man. It's hard to hit today with all these great arms coming at you and young arms and, different designs of pitches. So I think overall that encourages me to know that at least his mind is in the right spot. If he can get a hitter to think in his mind that something needs to change, that's a good thing.
Yeah, no, it's great insight. I'm a junkie for that kind of stuff. And yeah, I think last night you saw really shortening his approach a little bit, his hands, the position kind of starting a little early. And like you said, too, when he hits for contact, just good things happen. And he's a strong guy, like you mentioned. He puts his bat on the ball, it will find grass, it will leave the yard. He talked about it after he hit that bomb off Alex Reyes in the wild card game. He was just going up there trying to put the ball in play, make some good contact, and it left the yard. So yeah, I definitely think he's a guy that is going to get back to close to where he was. And look, he always has had some all or nothing in his swing, but as long as he gets down to career norms, 27, 28% strikeout rate, he's going to be able to help this team with that defensive versatility. I call him the Chris Army knife. He's going to play infield maybe 20% of the time at shortstop, like you said, platooning with Peralta and left, but I think he's going to be the key. But would you say he is the biggest X factor for this lineup, or who do you think is the X factor for this Dodgers lineup, Jose?
I think he's key. I think he's the guy to me that if I'm from the outside looking in going, I want to get to this guy, guy. I'm not going to get Freddie to hurt me or Muncy to hurt me or JD Martinez to hurt me. Let's get to Chris Taylor. And that's where he's going to have to say, okay, it's me. What is it going to require? And, you know, people have devalued RBIs. I love RBIs, okay? RBIs are runs. So, and you try to get runs to win, right?
Yeah.
Some guys need to find out a way to get the runs in, and it doesn't necessarily mean it with a base hit. There's a lot of times when we get too caught up. I do it myself, like, oh, the team went, 5 for 10 men in scoring position, and they lost. Then you see those lines and going, well, they went 3 for 11, but they won. Well, when do those 3 hits come is what matters the most. And sometimes that other 0 for 8 brings a ground ball infield back, and it gets you a run. And I think because of let's be honest, the way players are getting paid today, okay, strikeouts don't matter. They're getting compensated. If you had 20 home runs and you get struck out 180 times, it's like you're going to win arbitration. You're going to get a raise, right? So that has led into more of this, I believe, because I've talked to players say, hey, 220, 25 bombs, 60 ribbies, I'm going to get paid. And that's led to this. I'm not generalizing and saying everybody does this, but that's what the industry has gone. Now, we need to start valuing those team at-bats, those Will Smith at-bats, those Justin Turner at-bats. Those are quality. JD Martinez could be the biggest influence, as Freddie Freeman was last year, to be the enforcer in saying there's times when, guys, it's not about what I can do, is maybe thinking about the guy behind me, and if they're not pitching to me, I want to make sure the guy behind me knows that I'm trusting him by taking these pitches. Taylor could be the guy that helps Rojas and helps Vargas or Trace Thompson in the back end by doing the same thing.
Yeah, no, great points. And he also has that RVS connection, Taylor and JD Martinez. And I think it's another great point. As you look at the team last year, the bottom of that lineup, Ron Say, he was sitting in that chair. I can drop some names too. You say you got Shohei's number.
I like that.
Ron Say told me that the bottom of the lineup.
I love the Penguin, man.
Hey, he dropped some knowledge in that same seat. He's told me that, look, you can't be over-reliant on your top 3 or 4 hitters. You need depth. You need to keep the opposing team's pitchers honest. And with Chris Taylor producing, some of those younger guys like James Outman and Vargas and Peralta, those guys need to step up to make this a balanced lineup. But I want to ask you about Miguel Vargas, because he's a player that I've been pretty brazen, pretty bullish on, because I'm extremely high on him. I mean, you look at him, his age, 23 years old. You look at his bat-to-ball skills. What do you think makes him special as a hitter, as far as mechanically, as far as just how he sees the ball?
Watching this kid last year in spring training, the shortened spring training, I asked Dino Abel, Dino, tell me a guy that I should keep an eye on, the new guy here in the organization. And I read the name Vargas and obviously the rest of the prospects and Michael Bush. And so he goes, watch Vargas. I go, okay. And Dino and I know each other from obviously the Angels and the Dodgers way before. And what I saw was in batting practice, I always watch batting practice day 1 of spring training. I want to educate myself and my eyes to what I'm seeing so I can call it in a game without having somebody tell me, but because of what I saw and witnessed. Batting practice, Vargas, disciplined, educated, drives the ball, and gets some backspin. And he's a guy that gets into the batting cage with a plan of starting the other way, hitting the ball on the ground, the mentality of how he grew up in Cuba. Remember, he has a great pedigree in Cuba from his father, a well-known player, star player, who played under a lot of pressure, then managed, in the Serie Nacional in Cuba. So he's been grounded into this playing fundamental baseball the right way from a very young age. He's carried that into the United States. He's made a nice transition. But when I see this kid prepare for batting practice and see the ball jump off his bat and the exit velos that I've seen, is pretty impressive, especially right center field. And then when I approach a young player, I want to find out, hey, tell me what's made you be successful in the minor leagues. And I want to hear from him to tell me exactly what. It's not just, I love hitting fastballs. Who doesn't, right?
Yeah.
His answers are more like, I need to rediscipline and know the situation. You think about this. Know situations. What is it calling for? But he goes, I know that there's times when they're going to pitch to me. Sometimes I have to be very careful. I got to take my walks. But he goes, I cannot forget about one thing, Jose, right center field. And to me, it's like, thank you very much, because right center field approach as a right-handed batter with power allows you to do one thing: stay on the ball a little bit longer, not be afraid to getting jammed, and cover the outer half. And besides covering the outer half with your swing, taking that outside pitch that eventually makes you chase when you're not going well.
Yeah, and he also impacted the game with his speed on the base pass too. He's a great base runner. Yeah,
he can fool you too. You watch him run and jog around, like,
Yeah, I know.
This guy fast, and before you know, he's like first or third, like, oh, there he is.
Yeah, in his debut against the Giants, he just took off because he said he didn't think anyone could stop him. Yeah, I think Dodger fans are going to fall in love with Miguel Vargas. I think he has that star potential. He's got the earring, got the swaggy. Looks like Benny the Jet Rodriguez from the Sandlot. They're going to love that, too. And you mentioned, too, his exit velocities. He hits the ball hard. He's raked at every level. He's hit above 300 all throughout the minor leagues. I'm very high on him. I think he's going to be a rock for this team for 8 to 10 years potentially.
And I think also, Doogie, is that the Dodgers, through the years and generations, have always had a guy that they pinned down in the minor league and said, let's develop this guy, and he's going to be the guy. Vargas spent the offseason in L.A. working out and getting better by somebody saying, you need to do this. There's all the facilities. There's Dino Ebel. There's all the information you need. There's RCS with you. Go out there and just catch and make the routine play. All the pressure's going to be on the other guys. So they have him on the right path. And I've seen this with how many players through the years. And, going back to guys like Orlando Alvarez and Pedro Guerrero and Henry Cruz, and then comes the other wave of players and the rookies of the year and all that kind of stuff. So the Dodgers have prime guys and groom guys the right way, and I think the time is now for Vargas.
That is such a great point. I remember being at the holiday party this year, and I told the guy I was with, I was like, okay, Miguel Vargas is one of the only Dodger here. They are making him the guy. They're propping him up. They're going to give him that runway, kind of like what we saw with Gavin Lux in 2021. They know the potential that he has, but he's a guy that has had a lot of hype for years. Another guy in the Dodgers system, drafted in the 7th round. All of a sudden, he's emerged. Of course, I'm talking about James. You can't get him, Outman. James Outman has been a guy that has continued to slug. He continues to rake, and he's really going to get his opportunity. Do you think he's going to run with this opportunity, and what do you think he needs to do to stick?
I sure hope so. I mean, when you watch him hit, too, the ball's traveling, and he's got a very short, compact approach, not a long loopy swing, which is going to be beneficial in the big leagues because you have to make quick decisions in the batter's box as to swing or not, right? And he wants it. This kid really wants it, man. And every challenge they have put in front of him, he has answered to. And no, there's been challenges, and talking to scouts and evaluators through the years, and they have seen him through the years, but coming into the Dodgers for me last year, they're like, okay, there's a year in which he just could not turn on the baseball. There's a year or season in the minor leagues where he just could not get to a fastball, not turn on a fastball. And every time they put something in front of him, defensively, get better with the first step, get behind the baseball, take better routes, he has responded. To me, it's a mental thing and a strength that a young player has to say, it doesn't matter where I got drafted, I need to go out there and just continue to improve, and then allow myself and my skills and the numbers, obviously, to dictate my path. And he's done that. I believe that there's going to be some times where he might look overmatched like every young hitter. But there's going to be a time, too, when we're going to just say, just allow him to play against lefties. Please, don't take that rhythm away, But hopefully he'll get the right opportunity. He'll run with it. I don't think we can come in here and say, let's hope that he starts, tearing the league up in the first month. Let's make it gradual, because at some point, if he becomes an everyday player, the numbers will be there. And the athleticism is going to show up, not only with the bat, the way he runs the bases, his instincts, but also we've seen it in the outfield and with his throwing.
Yeah, no, defensively, he can impact the game. I actually took a lot of flack here because I took some flack here because J-Mode, it wasn't good because, look, I compared him. He went to the same high school as Tom Brady, who was a late-round pick in the 6th round. I'm not saying he's going to be the greatest baseball player of all time, like Tom Brady's going to be the greatest football player of all time, but like you mentioned, he's faced adversity. He wants it. He has that grit. He's had his doubters throughout his career when he was a Sac State Hornet, and he makes his way to the show, and I think he's going to have an OPS above 800. I think he's going to hit 25-plus bombs, but the big concern with him that you see people talk about is the strikeout rate. Last year in the show, over 43% at the minor league level at 28%. Do you think it's just about getting experience against big league pitching and just having pitch recognition? Do you think it's just going to be the reps, or what do you think mechanically, as far as approach, as far as how he attacks pitchers, is the most important thing into reducing that strikeout rate?
Watching his swing and looking the way that he approaches a baseball is going to be a matter of not changing the swing, but changing the pitch selection, okay, later in counts. There's times in which he's going to see one pitch to hit, and he might foul it off. And he might go, okay, I'm going to see that pitch again, and before you know it, it's 3 inches up, 3 inches in or out. You swing and chase, and then you're down 0-2. It's going to come down to him saying, this is the zone that I'm looking at. I got to stay with this zone right here. And with repetition, as you mentioned, Doug, it's hard to duplicate what happens in the big leagues, man. You can go out there and bang your head against a minor league player prospect and tell them this was going to happen. It doesn't work that way. Until you face it and you're given a chance to face it and fail, it's when you're going to get it, okay? Mike Piazza, managing Team Italy, I was talking to Mike about this, and he goes, Jose, Mike Piazza says, I just tell these guys to play pepper. What's pepper? Well, we forgot about that. It's the new generation. A lot of them don't know what pepper is. In other words, see the ball and just find the barrel, control the bat, and things like that have disappeared from our game. But for him, is it going to come down to, with 2 strikes, there's going to be a pattern on him. Either finish him upstairs with high heat or something out of the zone, down and in, right? So find out what the pattern is going to be, who you're facing, what their strengths are, and know who you are as a hitter. But don't be afraid of that little flare the other way, because it's going to make you a better hitter, stay in the ball a little bit longer. And power is not going to be sacrificed because, I mean, some of the best athletes, power hitters, have choked up. And we know that it's not going to affect his power. So I just hope that he doesn't get too caught up in the power, know that the extra base is going to be there. And when he learns zones and looks in certain zones and certain counts against certain guys, the power will always be there.
Yeah, preach, Jose. And yeah, I was the driver of the bandwagon to have James Outman make the opening day roster and really start in center field. And one of my biggest reasons was he really has nothing more to prove at the minor league level. And you want to face big league pitching. Outman told me, hey, you can't find a BP pitcher that throws lefty as well. You really just don't grow as much. And I think he's going to do that. You also mentioned earlier about JD Martinez and Freddie Freeman. There's pseudo hitting coaches out there. So I want to see him be around these guys to really reach his full potential. But I also want to ask you too about this lineup, about Miguel Rojas. And Miguel Rojas, we know defensively, this guy is top 5 defensively. I mean, what he does with his glove is just beautiful. I mean, this guy's fantastic. Now, offensively, he had a down year last year. And a lot of that, I think, had to do with the injuries, with the wrist injuries, really sapped him of his power. But he's looking better at the plate. What have you seen from him in the box so far this spring?
He brings energy, man. He brings a good at-bat pretty much every single time out. And to have him in the bottom of that lineup is going to be very important, because he is a veteran player who understands situational game. He also brings, to me, almost like a defensive mentality into the batter's box, saying, okay, so if I'm playing defense right now, how would I defend myself? I'm coming into the batter's box with this same mentality of going, well, he probably doesn't want me to pull the ball here. He wants me to go the other way. And I think catchers do this a lot. How would I pitch myself here in this situation, right? And remember, Benny Santiago, Yadier Molina telling me the same thing. Jose Molina, like, there's times in which you want to do it and say, how would I pitch myself here, and what would I call? And this is what I'm going to be approaching in the batter's box. But don't get too caught up in that, knowing that you're different. Some guys are power hitters, some guys are contact hitters. And I think for a guy like Rojas, he stays within himself. That's one thing. You don't see a big loopy swing, and he doesn't stay outside his circle. He just goes in and says, okay, maybe takes a swing out of whack, and it's like, okay, refocus and bring it back to where it is. Uses the other part of the field, chokes up on the bat, uses the label. I mean, the other day he celebrated when he got jammed, and he got a couple of RBIs on a single the other way. But those are the things that really motivate somebody like him and young players to go, if that guy right there at his age is getting it done like that and having fun doing it with that type of approach and also mentality, why not me? He's going to bring a whole lot in. You know, before the injury to Gavin Lux, I'm thinking there's going to be a way in which Miguel Rojas is going to push his way into the lineup and play a little bit more than we anticipate. Now his turn, and I think we're going to see some great things. And mainly with that pitching staff, you want to make sure that somebody is going to catch a ball and release the baseball. And you mentioned it, one of the top fielders for a reason. The routine play will be made. The spectacular player will also be a part of it, but he does not forget about what got him to the big leagues, the routine play.
Yeah, one of my bold predictions this year is the Dodgers are going to throw their first no-hitter since they had that team no-hitter in 2018 with Buehler, Cingrani, Garcia, and Liberatore. But he's going to make one of those game-saving plays that can preserve a no-hitter and really give this defense confidence. But one thing I want to ask you, too, was if you look at how this team has utilized the shift over the years, the batting average on balls in play, lowest in the league. Batting average against, lowest in the league. Yes, a lot of credit goes to the pitchers there, inducing a lot of soft contact, but how important do you think it is to have a glove-first shortstop now, a defensive-minded shortstop that can clean things up defensively?
Things have changed, man. There's no shifting anymore, and I think overall, baseball operations and the way this system operates is unlike anything I've ever seen. I mean, from Andrew Friedman down to obviously the staff, the coaches, but also all those people involved in just analytics and sabermetrics, they know and pinpoint some things to players that sometimes players don't realize. But on the fielding side now, a shortstop becomes an even more premier position because now you got to cover more left or right, right? And I had this conversation with Max Muncy, during the Fan Fest. I'm like, it's almost like everybody's using the same terminology. The athleticism is going to show up, and yeah, that's great. But even during the shift, you had to be athletic.
Yeah.
Because sometimes you're covering areas that you were not accustomed to. I mean, we saw like how many 5-6-3 double plays during, right? Because of where the shortstop was. So things like that did happen because guys were athletic. Now, what's going to happen now, obviously, is that you know where you're going to start. You know who's going to be next to you. There's no more you in short right field and like, who's next to me? Oh, first baseman. But there's a third baseman next to me, kind of thing, that kind of thing. And that's going to help a lot. And a guy like Rojas, instinctively, I watch him between pitches in the foul balls. He's always following the ball. Like Cal Brickman said one time. Cal's like, I'm like, Cal, hey, give me some tips. I'm playing shortstop in the F. He goes, Jose, you got to cheat. I'm like, got to cheat? What? He goes, yeah. Cheating means ball trajectory out of the pitcher's hand, and then you read the swing. If you think it's going to be a pull swing, start cheating that way. That's what cheating is. In other ways, anticipate where the ball's going to be, and Rojas does a very good job with that. I wish more players in the big leagues would do that. Yeah. You start with batting practice and reading swings, knowing who's on the mound, and outfielders got away from that. A lot of outfielders nowadays, flat-footed, react to the swing, react to the ball being hit, and make spectacular plays. But I think instinctively, coaches want more of just trust your instinct, but trust that first step because you practiced it. And for a guy like Rojas, teaching Vargas, that's going to be big. Yeah,
and that's the kind of cheating we want to see in Major League Baseball. Not cameras and trash can bang. That's the kind of cheating we like. But yeah, it really just hit me the other day when I was watching him, and when he made that diving play, I said, wait, the Dodgers told themselves, we utilize this shit better than any team in Major League Baseball. And that really was the cheat code in the sense that they were putting guys in positions to put pitchers in their best place, to really create outs. And run prevention is just important as run production. I think the Dodgers are going to value defense more these days. But
I saw Andrelton Simmons with the Angels. I saw him come up with the Braves. When I watch that guy play every single day, I'm like, this is a difference maker that the shift is hurting. Andrelton Simmons, I also saw him do this to people in dugout. I'm not moving. I trust my instincts. And by doing that, he saved more runs than by going on the shift. So there's that fine line where you got to just get away and don't get in the way of good athletes and their instincts and who they are. And trust that they know who they are. And that's the case, obviously, with guys like Miguel Rojas.
Yeah, Miguel Rojas, he's going to play a big role this year.